So I just bought this Tohatsu 40 horsepower M40C model, 2-stroke about a day ago, and I'm gonna see if I can fix it up. It's got the spot here for a tiller handle, but it doesn't have it on it. And I tested compression and spark, and spark looked good. Compression was lower at first, but after I pulled it over for a while, it actually started going up. Got about 130 pounds out of each cylinder. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lower unit off and check out the impeller. Just make sure it's not about to fall apart, because if it is about to fall apart, I don't want to start the motor and then push a bunch of pieces of the impeller throughout the motor. So I'm going to check that, and then you know, do a few other things and see if we can get it to run. Then if it runs good, I'm going to service it and sell it. So I'm going ahead and I'm taking off the lower unit here, and as far as I can tell, it's just these 3 bolts on this side, there's 3 bolts on the other side, and then this pit, you put it in forward gear, and that will bring this little area right here up, and you can pull out the cotter pin, and then the lower unit should come off. So got the lower unit off. Like I said, it was just those 3 bolts on either side, and then a little cotter pin that you took out from right here. And you know, I got the water pump off, and you know, some people, they will start up a motor first without checking the water pump. I used to do that, but I had one motor, a little 15 horsepower Johnson, and I started it up and it ran fine, and I went to service it, and the impeller had broken up into pieces, and it went all in the cooling system. So I took the motor apart, tried to clean it all out, and that was a mess. So, you know, I just look here, I checked this one, and you can see, you can see here which fin it is. This fin right here. Here, let me pull it out. This fin right here, cracking. This one, that one's not as bad. This one, almost cracking. This one, almost cracking. So there's a chance that I, you know, didn't want to take, that I try and fire this motor up, and that fin breaks off, and it goes into the cooling system, and it's just a whole, you know, you know, would it cause damage? Maybe, maybe not. But it's just a whole situation that is avoided by me doing that. So, just a tip. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run it without the water pump, just to see if it runs. I'm not gonna run it for long, probably just like, you know, 5 or 6 seconds. And then if it runs good, I'm going to, you know, order the parts to service it, and get working on that. So I did not get this on video, I apologize, but I came out here today and I was gonna see if I could hook up a fuel line, or my fuel tank, to the fuel line and pump some gas through the carb and see if I could start it. But the fuel lines are very brittle. It actually broke in multiple places. So what I ended up doing was I just took the end fitting off of the fuel line, and I just got the motor to where it was tilted back enough to where it wasn't leaning forward. And I sprayed just squirted some gas in the carburetor, pulled it over a few times, and it popped off. It just ran for a couple seconds, but it sounded really good. So for me, and again, I took the water pump out, so there is actually no water pump on it, but I did put the lower unit back on with 1 bolt. But it popped off, and it sounded really, really good. So my parts came in. I already took out the tiller handle just to take a look at it, and the grip that goes on it. It looks nice. I think it'll add some value to the motor to have a new tiller handle on it. But see, I'm just hoping that all the linkages, all these pieces line up properly with the motor. So here's my fuel line. So it looks like it's not actually molded to a certain shape, but you know, I know for a fact it should be the right size. So that's the benefit of ordering it online. But anyways, so right now I'm just going to look at the parts diagram and put together what parts of the tiller handle I can before I actually go to the motor and start putting it on the motor. So we'll see how far I can get. First I'm going to put the little speed sticker I bought to put there It was on the parts diagram, so I figured why not. I'll have to make sure that's actually put on the right direction when I go put it on the motor. So here I have my working tiller handle. So here I am with the motor again. The parts diagram, you know, I didn't realize that in some places where they had one screw or something like that, you actually needed to order two. One for the other side here. So, but other than that, the tiller handle, well, and I needed another one here. And this linkage, or whatever you call this rod, needs to connect to another few pieces to actually hook it up to this. So I need to order some more pieces there, but today I'm just going to try and, you know, I think I have all the parts to service this and I can get it running, and then once it's running I can see how it runs, and if it runs good then I can just order the other parts for the tiller handle and whatever else I forgot. So first I'm going to start off by pulling apart the carburetor and cleaning it because it's getting dark. So I got the carburetor off. It was just these 4 bolts. And so now I'm going to go ahead and replace this gasket actually before I forget. But anyways, let me show you guys this back of this carburetor. I mean, man, this thing is in really good shape. I mean, look at that. Look how clean that is. I haven't put anything on that. Look how clean that carburetor butterfly valve is. Holy crap. So what I'm thinking is, I'm starting to think this motor was barely used. So that's awesome. So here's the inside of the carburetor. Nothing too crazy. Just gonna go ahead and clean it out and start putting in new gaskets and throw it back on the motor. Well, I'm at a standstill here because this is the main jet, and took some convincing to get out. I had to use the manual impact driver to get it out, and I messed it up in the process. So I need to order some other parts, so I figured might as well order a new one of these. But anyways, so I got the water pump all put back together with a new impeller. I put lower unit oil on it to make sure it's lubricated for the first few turns, and put grease on the new pump gaskets down there, and then I put a new one of these on. Looks a little bit different than the original one, but I believe it should work just the same. So, and it seems to be imperfectly aligned here, but it's one of those things where as long as it's not hitting whatever goes right here, it should be just fine. As long as it's, you know, general rule, put it back together, and if it pumps water good, that means it's probably just fine. So I'm gonna put it back in and then get started on the rest of it. Yeah, I've also got a little bit of drive shaft grease to go back on the drive shaft before I put it in there. So got the lower unit back on and put a new cotter pin there. I just bought that from the auto parts store. This is the old one. It just unscrews from the hole. So just gonna go ahead and put a new one on. So one thing I'm gonna do here is I'm going to hook this up to a gas tank, and I'm gonna flush everything out. Even though I'm cleaning out the filter in here, putting a new gasket in there, I just want to flush it out a little bit just to make sure there's not anything really in there before I close up the fuel system and connect all the fuel lines. So just letting y'all know that. So since the last segment of this video, I made a lot of things happen, and I was stalled because on the carburetor I broke part of what holds the float in place, because on these Tohatsus, that little float pin right there is jammed. It's like very tight in between this little hole right here and the one that used to be right there. And I grabbed a pair of pliers and tried to pry on it, and I ended up breaking it. So I broke the actual metal part of the carburetor there, and I kind of stalled out. it didn't do anything for a while, until I actually got the opportunity to buy a parts motor from a really nice mechanic who helps me out in Clemson. So he sold me a motor for a parts motor for $200, and I took the carburetor off of that, and I've cleaned it up real nice. And see, this one's not broken. And I got the float pin out by just slowly pulling it out. It took like 10 minutes, but it didn't break. And this carburetor actually had dirt in it because it came from a motor that was sitting, I guess, in a yard at a marina or something. And there was dirt like in the throat. So I had to clean it out really good with soap and water, which I usually don't do, but to get all that dirt out, I did that. And I'm in the process of spraying carb cleaner all in it and rebuilding it. New gaskets and everything, soaking the carb in sea foam. Hopefully that'll pull out any water that still might be left in there and just give it an extra good clean. So I'm out here. I put on the rebuilt parts motor. That's the parts motor right there. Parts motor carburetor. Looks really good, fits great. In the process of hooking up the new fuel line and putting some new spark plugs in here. I looked it up and it seems like these were the best ones for the job. The BR7HS10 NGK plugs. It has Champion plugs in it, which I'm sure work fine, but it's an Asian motor, so generally speaking, from what I understand, you want to put an NGK plug would probably be better. If it was an American motor, I'd use the Champion plugs. So I'm gonna gap these at 0.04. Put these in there. Let's see what else, and then hook up a few things. What I'm gonna do here is, since this fuel pump came off the parts motor and it's probably been sitting a little bit, since I didn't rebuild it or anything, I'm going to flush some gas, mixed oil and gas, through the fuel system, and just pump it through a couple times just in case there's any crud in there. It should hopefully clean it out. It's probably fine, but just in case, we'll pump it through in case anything comes out. Okay, I'm gonna try and film this. I got the first plug done, and I was just gonna show you guys, for reference, how tight I like to get it. So it's this middle bar right here. So if you'll notice, it's just a little bit of resistance going in there. Just a little bit of a stuck. It's just a little bit stuck. That's right about where I like it. So I'm about to show you guys how I put in spark plugs. Sometimes if I'm feeling having a good day, I'll put a little bit of 2-stroke oil, if it's a 2-stroke, on the spark plugs, on the threads, just a little bit. You don't need that, but maybe just in case, to make sure it goes in there nice and smooth. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just hand tighten the spark plugs in there. Hand tight. Okay, tight, and then take my wrench. I do not use a torque wrench, although you can. I just go by feel. And there's different, if you look on the spark plug websites, you can actually find different ways where they'll tell you how to know when you're good. But what I go by is, there's actually a crush washer in there, and you want to crush that, but you do not want spark plugs too tight. You do not want to over tighten spark plugs. If you strip a spark plug, that's a mess. So I just turn it until I feel, so like when you first start turning it and you're crushing the crush washer, for the first time you put in that spark plug, the next times the times that you take it out and put it back in, and the crush washer is already crushed, it'll be different. But the first time you put it in, you'll feel that crush washer. It's because it'll have some resistance, but it's not getting like really tight. And then when the crush washer is done being crushed, you will feel it start to tighten up. And then I just go a little bit past that, and then I'm good. Do the same thing with the other one. See, nice and easy. And then it starts to get harder, and I just do it a little bit tighter, and I check both of them. Maybe one little last twist, but really don't need to be that tight. And they definitely do not need to be too tight. So I had a little setback, but that's all part of the plan. Turns out the little fuel filter that was here was leaking a little bit. So I pulled one off the parts motor, and it had a crack in the same spot. So now I hate those things. All right, I just got back from the store. I got a couple things, but most notably, I got a starter button to start it. So you just push it down. So that should be nice. And then I got a fuel filter, so we're looking good right now. This is nice and clear, so you can look through it. And then it's about $5. It is disposable, I think. So you just swap it out when it gets too dirty. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything important that I got. So let's go ahead and put it on the motor and start her up. All right, I'm pretty nervous for the first startup here. Ignore my weird starter wiring. It's not done. I'm gonna have to wire it in nicely to the what's it called, to the somewhere over here or something, and clean up the wires and everything like that. Haven't even seen if the starter works. I do know the pull starter works, but as of now, it's got new spark plugs, new impeller, new water pump base gaskets. If this goes well, I'm going to change the gear oil, new fuel lines, new adapters, both ends, some clean gas with some oil in it, and seafoam, new filter, new fuel lines, probably forget. I didn't even choke it. Didn't even choke it. See the water? There we go. That's what I'm talking about. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh yeah, we're doing good. All day. That's what I'm talking about. So, just in the process of changing the gear oil. I got the, and I'll probably do a look over before I am done, but I got a starter button hooked up, kill switch, even though I need to secure it better, but it's all wired in there. So just changing the gear oil. The gear oil looks great. Nice bluish, greenish, blackish color. So just gonna go ahead and put the screws back. Fill it back up, put the screws back in. I put new washers on there. Always make sure you take off the old washers And you know, putting in new washers is always a good idea. Then I'm going to take the prop off and just make sure there's no fishing line there and re-grease that. And I think that's it. So then just a couple other little finishes, and the main thing is getting that throttle hooked up, and then should be good to go. So finally got the final product here. Tiller handle's on and secured. Throttle's hooked up. I'll show you how I hooked it up in a minute because I couldn't find the actual factory piece. Looks really good. Everything's hooked up. Got a kill switch with a lanyard, choke, and electric starter. So just gonna fire it up here. He's under the hood. And then, so pretty sweet. Honestly, I think it usually starts up faster than that, but I just tested the compression and I think it was flooded a little bit, but I got 140 pounds on each cylinder, so that's awesome. And this is how I hooked it up. I found these two little metal pieces at the store and just wrapped them around. This is the one piece I was missing, so, and I put two of them on there just for good measure, but it looks like it works pretty good. So not worried about that. Yeah, so that's the finished product.